we'll go ahead and get started. That way we can make sure we get through everything. Okay, so everybody who doesn't know me, I do see quite a few people in the room that I do know and a lot that I don't. My name is Joseph Burchett, more commonly known as JC. I'm the coordinator for Military Veteran Services. I've been at Eastern Florida State College in one capacity or another for about 10 years. I started as a VA work study and then worked my way up to now being a coordinator for the center. I've been the coordinator for about a year, a little over a year now, after Ken Page retired. I'm sure that name, some people know that name going around. So today we're going to focus on a training about supporting our student veterans. So today's training is beyond the uniform, supporting student veterans. And we do have a few student veterans here today that will be taking some questions at the end. So today, what are we going to go over? So what is a student veteran? Military connected students, VA educational benefits, challenges for student veterans, medical issues for student veterans, positive impacts from student veterans, and how to support our student veterans. So what is a student veteran? Well, a student veteran is a former active duty military member who is now a college student. It's a simple fact. We do like the term student veteran versus veteran student. It signifies a little bit different because they are a veteran, but they're not a veteran to college. They've been, usually they're here for a few years. There are currently about 1 million student veterans worldwide utilizing educational benefits. Why do veterans enroll into higher education? Is to increase career opportunities, develop new skills, and support their family, and learn how to apply their military experiences to the civilian life. So we are a college that offers VA educational benefits. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the benefit types, just kind of explaining. You might hear these terms floating around with, if you're speaking with a student that's using these benefits. But we have Post 9/11 or Chapter 33 benefits, the Montgomery GI Bill, our Chapter 35 benefits, which is for our dependents. That's the benefit they will use. And our Chapter 31 vocational rehab and employment benefit, that is for mostly our disabled veterans, utilizes that benefit type. So from their service to campus, we have currently around 600 student veterans here at Eastern Florida State College and roughly over 1,300 military connected students here as well, which is approximately about a 46% increase since the pandemic. So we've grown quite a bit post-pandemic, so we definitely are seeing those numbers grow. So we're definitely seeing more and more student veterans on campus. So some of the challenges that student veterans face: a lot of them have families, a lot of them have employment, or sometimes medical issues. Only about 15% of student veterans are the traditional age of college students. So most of our student veterans are the ages between 24 and 40 years old. So they fit that non-traditional college age student. 62% of our student veterans are first generation college students. So they don't have any college experience within a family. And then 75% of student veterans are attending school at least full time. So we don't have a whole lot of part-time student veterans. Most of them go dive in head first and go full time. Out of that, so families, 47.3% of veterans are married. This is a national study, not necessarily just for Eastern Florida. And out of that, 47% of those have children as well. Many student veterans face unique challenges as they navigate the demands for higher education. And unlike traditional students, they often balance their academic responsibilities with the added complexity of caring for a family. These veterans tend to be older, juggling multiple roles as students, caregivers, and employees. One of the key challenges they occur is time management. So with classes, homework, and family obligations, pulling them different directions, they find it having to find time to manage that expectations and workload. Additionally, they often face emotional and financial strain as well. The pressures of academic performance and family responsibilities can create significant stress on the student veteran as they're trying to go to school. And having the GI Bill helps, but it still isn't necessarily 100%, which is why they do have to have that job where they have to go to work. So roughly 60% of student veterans that are going to school also have a full-time job while attending college, which is a remarkable testament to their resilience. And about another 25% manage at least a part-time job while they're in school. And that leaves only about 15% of student veterans who focus clearly just on school. So when we're thinking about, oh, why is this assignment late, or why, is this veteran not coming to class today? There's going to be some issues and some other, things that the veterans necessarily aren't telling people, but it's good for us to make sure that we understand that maybe they have some type of other obligation somewhere else, not just college. A lot of our student veterans, report some type of a physical or emotional disability. Disabilities can present a unique challenge that significantly impact their academic performance for a student veteran. These challenges often manifest in issues with concentration, missed classroom time, and the need for accessible resources, making it harder for those students to succeed. With those with physical disabilities, attending long classes or navigating a big campus can be difficult. Getting from one class to another in that 10-minute gap window sometimes is a little bit more difficult for them, especially if they're limited mobility, stuff like that. All right. So some of the other medical issues can be PTSD. That's a big one. So a lot of us are very aware of what PTSD is. It is a traumatic. So for people that don't know, PTSD is post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a mental health condition triggered by a traumatic event. It's often experienced by veterans due to combat exposure. PTSD can manifest through various symptoms, including intrusive memories, avoidance of certain situations, and mood changes. These symptoms can create significant challenges, impacting not only day-to-day life, but long-term as well, especially when the veteran is transitioning from civilian to educational goals. Why is it important to understand PTSD? Well, it's important to understand it so we can kind of erase the stigma from it, so we can make sure that they feel comfortable with getting the assistance they need, make sure they reach out to the correct places, and make sure that they go and get the available resources that we offer here at Eastern Florida and nationwide. So how does it affect the student? Well, for the student veteran, it impacts can be profound. It can interfere with their ability to focus, negatively impact academic performance, and also can put strain on social relationships, like your classmates. Having younger and older classmates in the classroom together is always something to look at. But for a student handling PTSD, sometimes that can make it a little bit more challenging, especially if they're having an episode or going through something at that time that maybe it's not visible, that we don't know. So we just need to be mindful of those for that student. But we do have support here at Eastern Florida State College. We have our sale department. We have EFS or EFS Cares. I always want to add the C to that. We have the Military Veteran Service Center for students that come hang out and talk to us. So we definitely have some stuff on campus, and I'll go over a little bit more about that later. So one of the other issues, which is similar but different to PTSD, is TBI. TBI is a big one. TBI is an injury to the brain that can cause a lot of different issues for our student veterans. So it especially can transitioning from the academic environment, because maybe they aren't able to remember quite as much. Maybe they, forget slight information during class time. Making sure that we have resources available for those students, to maybe record the lectures or to have the notes online or something that they can always refer back to, definitely helps that veteran or that person with that injuries to really be successful and make sure that they understand that they're not alone in the situation. So providing the right support for our student veterans can make a world of difference. Accommodations such as extra time on tests, access to assistive technology, and structured learning environments can help the students overcome these constraints. So we always recommend our student veterans to reach out for the help that they need, whether it's with sale, getting those accommodations that they would need to be in. And understanding TBIs, why does that matter? Understanding the impact of TBI can foster inclusivity and support in the educational environment. When we reduce the stigma, encourage empathy and inclusivity among staff, faculty, and students, um, that makes a big difference for those students. They don't feel like they're out in the cold by themselves. That we understand what's going on, and we're making sure that we're there to help them. Early recognition and these challenges associated with TBIs allows us to provide tailored support to that individual to make sure that they're successful both academically and professionally. So another big issue that some of our student veterans may face is musculoskeletal and hearing loss. Those are two of the bigger ones that a lot of the student veterans, PTSD and TBIs are very common, but they're not the most common when it comes to some of our student vets. So what is a musculoskeletal issue? So many facing that transition, unique physical challenges can impact their success as well. So musculoskeletal problems can make it difficult for that veteran to sit for a long period of time. So those hour and 15-minute classes are nice, but those science classes or those double face-to-face classes that are two classroom periods long, that 2.5 hours may be a little difficult for that student to sit there for the whole time. So just being understanding if they get up and walk around, or they take a step outside to stretch their legs or whatnot. We're just being understanding of those issues during during the classroom. And it's important to understand these so they don't feel like they're disruptive or anything of that nature, because I know some of our student vets, they're nervous. They don't want to get up. They don't want to make a scene. They don't want to be like, oh, look at me, look at me. But sometimes they just can't help. They have to get up. They have to move. Hearing loss is another big issue that some of our vets face. I would probably say the majority of our medical issues are going to be that hearing loss or tinnitus. Tinnitus is just that constant ringing in the ear. What that does is it makes it a little bit more difficult for them to listen in class, because if they're having an episode of tinnitus, they can't hear very well. So helping them, making sure they have those devices they need, making sure they get set up with SAIL to sit closer, to hear better. That definitely is stuff that we can do to help our student veterans out. All right. So it's not all about bad things from student veterans, medical, family, and all that stuff. Student veterans also bring a really positive impact to our campus. Like what do they do? How does that help us? So student veterans have various qualities, but the three that I thought were the best to talk about is their leadership, their resilience, and their teamwork. So student veterans bring an exceptional leadership skill to the academic environment. Their military experience trained them to be part of a team, to understand the needs of the team, and to be able to think in high pressure and stressful environments with rapid changing things, which is kind of like the academic environment. Look at this semester alone. We had multiple hurricanes. We've had to flex our, people had to adjust timelines and deadlines for different events, or move tests up or move tests back due to things. And with what they do, they understand this, and that's part of their leadership abilities and their resilience. Resilience is a defining trait of a student veteran. I've been around, like I said, about 10 years working with student vets, and I myself was a student veteran for a long time. Facing challenges within combat or other stressful environments, they developed a remarkable mental toughness to handle that kind of stuff. So they're definitely there, and able to adjust and make those changes. So we need to make sure that we're understanding of that they, they're a different type of student. They're not your traditional 18-year-old high school, graduate that's come out. They have life experiences and stuff. Teamwork. Lastly, veterans excel in teamwork. In the military, we're integral members of a cohesive unit working together to achieve shared goals. So that's what makes them great in team projects and stuff like that. If they can work all together, they can make that team project really, really flourish and really go. And their ability to work effectively with diverse groups is such a positive impact in a college setting. Sorry. All right. So how do we support our student veterans here at Eastern Florida? So understanding the difference in student veterans is one. Student veterans bring a unique perspective and experiences to the academic life, which sets them apart from that traditional student. They often have different life circumstances, including being older, having families, working. Many have lived through intense, life-changing situations while they are in their service, and many have lived through, by recognizing those things that they've lived through, we can appreciate the diversity that they add to our campus. Like it's so nice lately to see so many student veterans here on campus, back in the since COVID, back in the classrooms, back on campus with the campus life, hanging out in our veteran centers again. So, and then being mindful of the students' experiences. So to support them, we have to be mindful of their experiences and what they bring with them. Many of them transition from military to academic life. It can be challenging for them. It's something, we're in a less structured environment. In the military, we're used to, hey, you got to be here at this time, you got to do this, you got to do that. And in classroom settings, it's, you're a little more free to move around to do what you need to do. And so sometimes they'll skip class for other reasons than just medical issues and stuff, because they don't have that. There's no punishment or no, realistic, consequence to missing class other than like missing a few homework assignments. So, we got to understand that the structure for them is where it's, we got to make sure that they understand that, hey, this is structured. You got to turn your stuff in on time and everything like that. Providing the resources for students, goes a long way as well. We do have a lot of resources here at Eastern Florida for our student veterans. We have military veteran centers. We have 2 of them currently. We're working on opening our 3rd one. We have one here on the Melbourne campus. Sorry, I'm used to being on Cocoa. One here on Melbourne campus, and then we have one on the Cocoa campus as well. And then hopefully sometime in the beginning of the year, we'll have one for the Palm Bay campus as well. So we are hoping to reopen that center up. And providing, flexible scheduling for like advising, peer mentorships, the learning centers and stuff like that really help our student vets, get the help and the stuff that they need. So I've mentioned a few times some of the resources we have for student veterans. So some of the outside resources, obviously, if they're going through some hard times, PTSD, TBIs, we want to make sure that we have the suicide hotline on standby for them, 988. That's changed recently. I don't know if everybody's highly aware of that or not. So that has changed. And in Student Veterans of America, that's a big outside resource for our students. We have a chapter of Student Veterans of America on Eastern Florida State College called the Collegiate Veterans Society. I'm sure some of you guys may have heard that name thrown around a few times. So we're just a chapter of that national chapter, kind of like PTK or any of those other clubs that have huge chapters. So there's tons of resources out there for our students. And then our EFSC resources, SAIL is probably our biggest one that I would say our student veterans really need to understand that they have that resource. So if you're meeting with a veteran, if you're even if you're unsure if they have disabilities or not, always refer them to SAIL and then let SAIL talk to them about what could be out there for them. That's, I think, one of the biggest challenges we have is a lot of our students, they don't like to ask for help. They're very proud. So getting them in the door of SAIL is probably the biggest thing that we can do to help make sure that they are going to achieve great things here at the school. We have our military veteran service centers. Like I said, we are on 2 campuses currently, almost on 3. We talk to our students. We're all Firewatch certified, which means we can help them, if they're having a crisis situation. And, we're there for camaraderie. That's the biggest thing too, is a lot of our vets really love that camaraderie and making sure that they have a place that they feel that they fit in. And that's what the centers are there for. And like I said, they've been growing since COVID. Like we finally started getting more people hanging out in the offices again, getting that grouping back. So it's growing strong. And then lastly is Academic Support Center. They're super important. Getting them to the learning labs, to the writing centers, to the math tutors. If they're struggling in a course, making sure that, if they're coming to you say, hey, I don't understand this stuff, just making sure that they're aware that these resources are there. Some of our academic centers have veterans that work in them. Like I know our one here in Melbourne has has a veteran that works there, so they may feel more comfortable knowing that as well. So that's all I have for the PowerPoint presentation. We are going to do some questions with the student panel. Right here, I have 3 of our student veterans. We have Zachary Devaney. He is a U.S. Marine Corps veteran, 4 years. He was an MP. He was a dog handler during that time. He is our current Collegiate Veteran Society president, actually. And then he is currently working on his bachelor's degree, or he's heading towards his bachelor's degree in conservation biology over at UCF. So he's going to be moving forward to that. Then we have Alexander West. He is our second one. He is one of our VA work studies here on the Melbourne campus. He is currently a transient student. He goes to UCF full-time for electrical engineering, but he is still hanging out with us doing some of those math classes and science classes, all that fun stuff. He was also a Navy veteran. He did basically worked with anti-ship missile defense, and he was in for 7 years. He's been out around 3 years now. And then on the very end there, we have Calvin. He's one of our freshest outs. He's been here, I think, a little over 4 months, 5 months with us, like out of the military. He was a hospital corpsman in the Navy as well. And he was in for 6 years stationed with the Marines and overseas. So we got a nice variety of our student veterans up here. So the first question I'm going to ask them, and then we're going to go from Zach down to Calvin for these questions. So what challenges did you face when transitioning from military life to being a college student? And then how did the college community help or hinder that process?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, awesome. So the biggest challenge I think I faced coming out of the military was just the amount of time in between actually being a student. I pretty much joined the military right out of high school. I'll be the first to admit I wasn't a very good student in high school. And that kind of drove my decision to join the military because I figured, I'm not going to college. There's no way I'll make it in college. Like, I'm probably never going to go. I'll end up in a trade or something like that. But here I am. So I think the hardest part was definitely relearning how to be a student. Having 5 or 6 years in between high school and then finally coming to college, it was really hard, especially in those first couple of classes, to really figure out how I need to manage my time and study well and try to pick back up on the things that I may have forgotten over those 5 or 6 years. So that was definitely one of the hardest parts, was just relearning how to study and how to be a good student. Because if you want to perform well, like, you've definitely got to put in the effort. I wasn't going to be able to just kind of skim by like I did in high school. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges that I faced, was just kind of getting that basis of understanding material back into my head. So and then in addition to that, like making time for schoolwork. I like to be a very active person, so I really like to be physically active. I like to go to the gym and work out, and I do mixed martial arts. And sometimes you have to make sacrifices. You're not able to do the things that you want to do because you got to sit down and get your nose in the books. So making sacrifices in that regard is another challenge that I've faced, but it's just all about time management. And that's one of the skills from the military that I think that I brought to school that's helped me a lot too. So as for how the community has helped me, like being in the Military Veteran Service Center, I get to interact with other veterans on a daily basis, and to be around somebody who kind of already understands like what I've been through and what I've experienced and things like that. It's really relieving to know that you have someone else there that knows what kind of stuff you've gone through. And like JC said, like the camaraderie of it, the continued camaraderie of being in the military, like that's, I think, one of the hardest parts about getting out of the military, is you kind of lose that brotherhood, that feeling of belonging to something bigger than yourself. Um, a lot of people that get out of the military say, like, I miss the clowns, but I don't miss the circus. Like, it's the people that you really miss when you get out. So having other veterans around that I can interact with daily has been invaluable to me. Um, and then just seeing success in them and knowing that they can do it, it kind of gives me a little it, it gives me a little bit of confidence that I can do it too. So um, those have been my biggest challenges and the things that have helped me in college the most. So thank you.
Some of my biggest challenges, honestly, have been uh, like we've tagged on to the teamwork aspect of it. It not to point fingers at anybody specifically, but it seems a lot at the very beginning. It seemed kind of like college is kind of about herding cattle, if you will. Like there's not really that personal touch to it sometimes. Like, and that goes for a lot of different aspects. Like going through the transitioning period from Eastern Florida to UCF is pretty challenging. Uh, Sometimes you have some teachers that are not very personable. So the biggest challenge is going from having all this access of teammates that can help you out on any different level that you have to now it seems kind of like you're just kind of flowing through because to be fair, it is a lot of high school students that come through here that, they this is all normal to them every day going in a classroom and talking to teachers and all that stuff. So it was honestly that's been my biggest challenge is that there wasn't a huge personal touch to it. And I'm a huge people person myself. I hate being by myself. I love being around people, and so the thing that helped me the most was uh, meeting these guys in the Military Veterans Service Center and the Collegiate Veterans Society because Zach nailed it on the head. It's different whenever you're around people that actually have been through the stuff that you're going through. And honestly, if it not to be corny or anything, but if it wasn't for these guys, I probably would have given up in school a while ago. I like these guys all hit at as well as it's been a long time since I've been an actual student. So having to relearn how to be a student is hard. And I've had my fair share of struggles. I've failed some classes here or there, and it is tough. So uh, that's how uh, that's how they helped me. And the only thing that I would give advice wise for uh, the staff that joined us here today to actually take time out of their day to listen to us is to be patient with us because while we are, kind of independent in our own right, we still require a lot of assistance from other people. And sometimes this is hard for us to understand. And so maybe we come off as harsh or rash or anything like that. But you just, be patient with us and give us an ear. I know I can speak for myself at least. I greatly appreciate it whenever I do come across somebody that's willing to take the time out of their day to help me out. So,
Hello, everybody. Yeah, for me, like in terms of challenges I'm facing now, is just sort of just reframing my psyche, like kind of how JC mentioned. I've recently just got out and still kind of transitioning to more civilian like lifestyle, and that kind of coming from a more like very high tempo and like very regimented lifestyle to like more of a new pace where I'm like a lot more it's on me, but now I have to like kind of search more for resources, kind of how you guys were mentioning with the service center and like also like tutoring and all those other things, kind of like familiarizing myself with that and the best way to kind of be successful. Also kind of beating myself up for like making as many mistakes, like 6 years not being in college and coming back, like failing a class or not doing so well on a test hits my head a little heavier because consequences were a lot heavier in my prior line of work. So kind of like separating those associations, kind of like something I've been challenged with. Everything else they kind of like summed it up in their answers pretty similar. I'm still kind of like going through the motions of everything. So
So yeah, we find that a lot with our student veterans that there's all sorts of difference in time off from school. So myself, when I came back as a student veteran, I was 10 years out of high school, so I hadn't been in high school for a very long time. Um, and so that's getting that remembering how to become a student again is definitely I think one of our biggest challenges our student vets face. So just being patient with them and understanding that concept is something that's greatly appreciated. All right. So our second question is, how do you use your military experience to influence your approach to academics in the classroom interactions or engaging with younger, more traditional students?
So this question, I mean, we kind of already talked about it a little bit. Just like JC mentioned in his PowerPoint, leadership, resilience, teamwork. These are all things that are core values to us. Um, Definitely, like when it comes to classroom presentations or group presentations or group assignments and things like that, being able to take the initiative on it and kind of lead the group to a successful outcome. Um, that's something that I think I really pride myself on being able to do. Um, Leadership in the military is obviously extremely important. Everyone looks to their leaders for guidance. So when you have students who are a little more traditional, like Alex mentioned, like especially like high school students just transitioning into college and things like that, who may not have life experience yet, you can kind of be that guide for them and help them, help show them the way to be successful. Um, and on the note of interacting with younger and more traditional students, like the military is a very, very diverse place. There's people from all over the country that you end up getting placed with in your unit. So um, that's something that is really it's kind of weird to say, but it's kind of goes to the back of your head. You don't really even think about like how people might be different from you or anything like that. So being in school, like I I I I know that any military member will be able to get along with and work with everybody. So um, that's definitely one thing that we have at our advantage as well. I mentioned it in the answer to my first question, but time management is another really important one. Being able to manage your time between classroom, then studying, if you work or have any, other hobbies and things like that, but being able to manage your time effectively between those different areas is another thing from the military that is very important. Um, and then when it comes to engaging with students and engaging with instructors or professors and things like that, one of the things that they always used to tell me in the military when I was an MP is you have to be tact. Tactfulness is key, and just I think the military also has a very rigid, at least in the Marine Corps, it's a very rigid line as far as your mannerisms and how you interact with people. You have to be very, very tactful and very respectful. And I brought that with me from the military as well. So anyone that I talk to, whether they're older than me, younger than me, I treat them with the same respect that I would, a staff sergeant or a second lieutenant or whatever it might be. So um, just effectively communicating and making sure that you get your point across in an effective but tactful way. Those are some of the things that I've brought from the military that I think have helped me out a lot in college so far. So,
For me, one of the things that I was able to do, or at least I try to practice as much as possible, is problem solving, and that applies not just to whenever I'm working on a differential equation or anything like that. That's if I'm struggling with a particular thing in school. I try to identify what the problem is and try to best find a solution for it. Now, obviously, there's more to it, like follow through and actually retaining the new information that you get. But that's something that I try to do for, I guess, troubleshooting, if you will, is a experience or thing that influences my classroom etiquette, if you will. And interacting with students, like Zach said, is I've never met a more diverse group in my life than being in the Navy. You meet people that get their citizenship through military service, so it's not just people around the country. You make friends with people from around the world. like people from Africa, the Philippines, all sorts of places. So to me, the interaction with students isn't that much different. However, the difference is because students and sometimes even teachers or faculty, they don't really have that sense of diversity. There are some people that have never left Brevard County. So it's different whenever you're interacting with them. Like we may be comfortable with them, but they might not interact in the best ways that you possibly need. And like I said, that doesn't really go all for just students. Sometimes you have staff that aren't the best at interacting with people. Maybe they were just having a bad day or something like that. But yeah, so that's honestly the thing that I would praise the most is I'm thankful for being around diverse people nowadays, even if they're 18-year-old kids right out of high school and they don't know who Robin Williams is. It's so yeah, that's what I'm thankful for, honestly.
In terms of influence that I feel like I've kind of brought to the table in the classroom is, I guess, using my voice, being like vocal, especially noticing in the first semester, I'm noticing like a lot of students are kind of timid. They probably came out of high school. They're not really like comfortable talking to begin with. So me being the person I am, kind of like if something's unclear or if I have questions, I'm not afraid to kind of speak up or use my voice or even like ask questions I may feel some other students may have. I feel like that's really important with interacting with them as well in terms of like breaking the ice. Like I said, I feel like a lot of people are in their own bubble or in their phone or whatever. And at least for my what I'm going for, like in computer science, like they're almost innately kind of like doing that already, but just trying to like break them out of their bubble, kind of talk more, work together. I feel like it's been like the biggest tool I've used so far.
All right. So yeah, so our veterans, like they said, is handling that diversity. I know sometimes like being in a classroom with the younger students, sometimes some veterans have that. Oh my God, they're I have socks that are older than these kids sometimes. So so yeah, so they're doing a great job. So the last question I have for them, what surprised you most about college life, and how has that impacted your experience?
I think that the most surprising thing for me coming into college, I took a year in between getting out of the military and actually going to college. I spent some time working before I came to college. So I think the most surprising thing for me was realizing that it really is it's a full-time job. Like in and of itself, it's its own full-time job. You work around the clock to make sure that you're doing what you need to do and getting the things done that you need to get done. And I guess I wasn't fully prepared for that when I first started. So it did take me a couple of semesters to get into the swing of things again. But it really is a full-time job. So I've already mentioned learning how to separate your time effectively and make sure that you have time to not only have plenty of time to work on what you need to work on, but also to relax and enjoy, a little time off is very important as well. I turn into a little bit of a workaholic whenever the semester really gets going. And I really have a hard time stepping away from the computer sometimes because I'm just so like, go, go, go. I need to get this done. I need to get this done. I need to get this done. One of the things that I have always had trouble with is just slowing down and just taking a second to relax. So that surprised me the most, and that's impacted my experience for sure. There's a lot of time that goes into it, but it's what needs to be done, and it'll be worth it on the back end. I know that for sure. So.
Some things that surprised me the most about college, I actually have a good and a bad one. The bad one, start off bad and then we'll end good. But the bad one is I've seen a lot of people that I think take college for granted. Like as being somebody that, like Zach, I wasn't necessarily the greatest of high school students. And I had a contract signed with the Navy when I was 16 and I left for boot camp at 17. So I went straight into the Navy out of high school, and like Zach, I was like, I'm never gonna go to school again. I would rather do like construction or something like that. I didn't really, value school like that. And so then whenever I separated from the Navy and I started my first semester, I remember my very first class was an introduction to electronics. It was a night class over in Cocoa campus. And I remember the very first day, there was 2 students that were in there that were just sleeping. And to me, it made no sense because we all technically pay to be in that class. So you're essentially paying to take a nap. And that was the surprising bit to me, is that people don't understand that this actually is a privilege to be here. Not everybody can actually be here at school. So that's why I feel bad whenever I come up short, is because, this is something that not everybody gets to do. And it feels like I'm squandering it sometimes if I don't do the best that I could possibly do. And the good thing that surprised me about school, honestly, is the amount of resources that we have, especially here at Eastern Florida. Because I'm only in my second semester at UCF, and I haven't really gotten the lay of the land too much yet at UCF because it's a big school. But Eastern Florida, it really surprised me that we have not just the Military Veterans Service Center and the CVS, but also the SAIL office. Like, I'm involved. Well, I have SAIL benefits as well. And then there's the what's it called? The locker where you can get food and stuff like that for struggling students.
Planetine.
Yes. And then there's even the Academic Success Center. I wasn't expecting that there would be tutoring assistance. I figured it was going to be it's your responsibility. You better learn how to do it and learn it fast. You only have 4 months at most, sometimes only 3, to learn this stuff. So those are honestly the 2 big things that surprised me.
Yeah, I think the main thing that's been surprising for me is just kind of underestimating kind of the whole transitional process for myself. At least like leading up to getting out, I kind of just been trying to, even like then, try to reframe my mind, kind of like thinking about school, how that's going to look like, where I'm going to stay, all those things considered. And then like now I'm here and I'm going through it now, and I'm still like having, I guess, certain moments where I feel like I'm in the military. There's like moments where it's kind of triggering or whatever. So like, not trying to, kind of as Zach mentioned, like, I kind of want to just rush and kind of get out of that like mind state, but I think it's kind of different for everybody. I think like over time is just kind of something that's gonna, I guess, normalize, quote unquote, my brain to kind of be more successful, or what I think I want to make myself into. I think that's like the main surprise / challenge I've been up against right now.
Well, thank you guys for coming out, and big hand to our student veterans over here for answering all your questions. And I appreciate everybody coming out. If you need to get a hold of me, my contact information's here. It is in the PowerPoint and the handouts that I gave out as well. And thank you.